If, like me, the very first Zelda game you played was Ocarina of Time back on the N64, then you'll understand just how different Breath of the Wild is compared to it. Now of course it wasn't a huge jump straight from Ocarina to Breath of the Wild, but it also wasn't subtle either. As the years went on from Ocarina, we have seen many Zelda titles. Majora's Mask, The Wind Waker, Twilight Princess, Skyward Sword, A Link Between Worlds, Spirit Tracks, Phantom Hourglass. Oh yeah, and this one. But the biggest one of them all is of course Breath of the Wild. It's not only the biggest Zelda game ever, but it's also the best selling and most played Zelda game to date, easily surpassing the masterpiece that is Ocarina of Time. And the most important thing of all, so many of us are still playing this game right now in 2020, myself included. I always find myself replaying this game over and over, but why? How is The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild still thriving years after its release? Well, in this video we will be answering that very question, so hit that subscribe button if you enjoy Zelda content and don't forget to give the video a thumbs up. And with that out of the way, let's jump into the video. The Zelda team have been switching up the series for years with each new game. Although a lot stays the same, a lot also changes. Majora's Mask is famous for its complete lack of respect towards its usual Zelda formula. It's not even close to your normal Zelda game, but at the same time, it still has the Zelda feel to it. How that's possible without your traditional Zelda material is what makes the game so unique. I mean, no Ganondorf, no princess to save, 4 dungeons, 60% side quests, and yet you still know and feel you're playing a Zelda game. That is pretty impressive. The Wind Waker also changed a lot for the series, mainly with the graphics. The cartoony look was very hit and miss, but also with the Great Flood of Hyrule. Hyrule now being submerged underwater meant we had a completely different way to explore the world by navigating the seas using the King of Red Lions, gathering treasure chests filled with rupees, exploring uncharted islands, and not to mention the legendary ghost ship we get to explore. The Wind Waker was basically a pirate game, but while Majora didn't follow the Zelda formula, The Wind Waker did. Twilight Princess, another game that changed the series but stuck with the traditional Zelda formula. The biggest change was the ability to transform into a wolf. This opened up the doors for a completely new way to play the game. Whether it's traversing the massive Hyrule or defeating enemies, Wolf Link was a great addition to the game, and not to mention we get to swing this thing around. So as we can see just by a few of the Zelda games before Breath of the Wild, small features were tweaked, added and changed, but the overall experience was familiar. They all share similar story elements and gameplay mechanics that offer a unique experience from one another, with the exception of Majora's Mask, which changed a fair amount, such as the 3-day timer. But even though I love every Zelda game I have ever played, especially the ones previously mentioned, I don't find myself replaying them anywhere near as often as I replay Breath of the Wild. Hyrule in Breath of the Wild is huge, and I mean ridiculously huge, especially compared to previous Zelda titles, and exploring this massive version of Hyrule is one of the major parts of Breath of the Wild. People today are still finding secrets and mysteries that scatter the vast land of Hyrule. Having a world so open and diverse makes it incredibly easy to hide Easter eggs and references. The world map literally slaps you in the face with references, such as Tingle's Island, that links together with 3 other islands named after his brothers. Or deep within the Lost Woods, we have Lake Saria and Mido Swamp, clear references to the Kokiri race from Ocarina of Time. Another reference to the Kokiri is the possible location of Kokiri Forest, where the Kokiri, now Koroks, once lived. I made a video on this topic, so if you're interested in it, then go and check it out. The Zelda team have filled in so much of the map, but have left so many details and mysteries off of the map. A huge mystery within the game is of the huge rock sculpture in Death Mountain of the Goron Damani. Damani is a Goron from Majora's Mask that's based in the parallel world to Hyrule, Termina. The Gorons of Hyrule shouldn't know about the world of Termina, yet here lies a huge rocky sculpture of Damani. It's likely just a non-canon reference, but many people believe that Link showed the Gorons the route to Termina, and that's how they found out about the legendary Damani. It's incredibly frustrating not knowing the story behind the giant sculpture of Damani, but it's great fun finding it and knowing a huge mystery could surround it. Having such a huge map means there are tons of secrets just like this. Many people will argue that Breath of the Wild's map is empty, but I disagree. The map is littered with things to find and do, and half of the fun is piecing together the story behind burnt down structures or fallen guardians. Almost every structure and area in the world tells us a story of the past. Maybe not always directly, but breadcrumbs are often scattered for you to make your own mind up of how a fallen guardian was possibly defeated. Previous Zelda titles had some fun and interesting references and Easter eggs, but it didn't take long for the Zelda community to find them all, whereas Breath of the Wild makes it incredibly hard to locate each and every one, which is a big reason I still enjoy jumping into it over and over. Now everybody loves puzzles, and if you don't, I'm struggling to understand how you even enjoy Zelda when the games are incredibly puzzle based. Now of course we know that Breath of the Wild gave us puzzles in the form of shrines, 120 base shrines to be precise, but a lot of people overlook these shrines. They weren't just created to be fun, quick trials, they were created to be solved in multiple ways. When you have a puzzle that can be solved in multiple ways, you have puzzles that can be replayed without getting bored. Almost every time I restart Breath of the Wild, I try to complete a shrine in a different unique way from the time I did before. Not only does this add a new challenge, but it creates a new way of playing the shrines. I also often complete a shrine in a different way without even realising it until after I've completed it. You can tell immediately that the Zelda team tried their hardest to make sure Breath of the Wild would be a relevant, replayable Zelda game years after its release. The way in which they designed the shrines was an incredibly smart move. They also created tiny puzzles that were simple but very fun and rewarding. I'm of course talking about the korok puzzles. Although only small trials, the variety helps keep them fresh and keeps you motivated to carry on playing. Puzzles are great, but the main reason Zelda Breath of the Wild is thriving in 2020 is because of its different and unique ways to experience and play the game. The runes alone add so much more to an already expanding game. Not only do they help solve a vast amount of puzzles within shrines and divine beasts, but they also help with defeating enemies and exploring the world. Being able to pick up a metal crate using magnesis and literally beat a bokoblin to death with it, or drop it on its head is hilarious and so much fun. Or freezing an enemy in place with stasis before it attacks you and running behind it almost mocking the poor creature is a great way for you to experiment with the rune. Cryonis, although not as used as much as the other runes, can be very helpful in crossing rivers that maybe slow your path. And lastly we have the bombs, a staple weapon in the series that just comes in handy at all times. But as well as the runes and exploration, we also have the cooking, divine beasts, the many settlements and characters, and of course the almighty, unforgettable sailcloth. Although I personally didn't love the divine beasts, they still added an extra activity to the game. I felt they were more of a side activity rather than a main part of the game, but still they were fun and unique trials that offer heart containers and a special ability. And don't even get me started on the cooking. How can something so simple keep me so busy for so long? I've spent many hours alone just experimenting with the cooking in this game. Like who doesn't love cooking with the spiky godly durian fruit and having OP meals and hearts? The combat in Breath of the Wild is pretty basic to say the least, but it works so well and it's very satisfying to take on enemies. And it's even better taking on one of the monstrous world bosses like Lynels or Hinoxes. Breath of the Wild isn't about what made Zelda games great in the past, it's about what makes Zelda games fun to play. Everything you ever found fun in a previous title are made so much better in Breath of the Wild, with the exception of dungeons, which I think needs improvements in Breath of the Wild too, but that's a completely different topic. But everything you loved before, which was at a simpler level, has been improved and made more complex and more enjoyable. Combat, exploration, puzzle solving, even the small amount of use of the sailcloth in Skyward Sword has been completely reworked. Seriously, I can't live without this thing. If it's not in Breath of the Wild 2, I probably won't even buy it. I love the older Zelda games, and there are some features I would love to see return, but the best part about Breath of the Wild is being able to pick it up and just play. Being able to restart the game from scratch and play the way I want to. leaving a shrine or task I don't enjoy till later on in the game, and of course the fact that Breath of the Wild is almost untouched in terms of its many mysteries. There is still so much to piece together and explore that I just get excited every time I play this game. I love Breath of the Wild, and I would love to know what makes you keep returning to this magical game, so let me know in the comments down below. A massive thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed, then leave a like and subscribe for more Zelda content. A huge amount of love goes to my Patreons, so thank you for continuing to support me. Links to my Patreon, Discord and Twitter will be in the description box below. Once again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.